Hello, ladies. Welcome. It's Claire from the Awaken Woman podcast. Welcome to episode 8. I hope you guys are fantastic. I hope you guys are feeling all the feels and very festive this 8th of December. Today's podcast is a cracker. We have got Karolina Soprun, who is a counsellor and a transformational coach, and she owns her own business, Knowing Her Wellness. So, Karolina, welcome. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me, Claire. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, Karolina and I have been chatting for a little while, and today's episode is something that is very close to my heart and Karolina's as well. Today is all about the real burnout effect. Now, we're not going to sit here and give you some tips and strategies. We're going to give you some real life experience of what burnout actually is versus what you may see influencers or people around you say. Because similarly to anxiety and depression, people that suffer from those struggles will feel a little bit of a pang when people perhaps are using it as a little niche word. So Karolina and I are going to chat about the real burnout effect. Karolina, who is Karolina? Let's say hi and introduce you to everybody.
Oh, I love this question. I feel like whenever someone asks me this question, I think about all the different things that I've done. I guess just because we are talking about burnout and just a little bit of context, I guess I might start off with sort of my journey and
Absolutely.
But like you mentioned, I'm obviously Karolina. I'm a counsellor and a transformational coach. Before I did that, though, I finished a science degree, so I majored in physiology, and then I had a little bit of a break and started doing my master's in radiation therapy. So for those that don't know what radiation therapy is, it's pretty much treating cancer with a really big machine, just to sort of put it simply. So you're technically a technician. So you work really closely with nurses and doctors to treat the cancer. And it was at my master's that I sort of came down with burnout, but I know we'll touch on this in just a moment. And so while I was going through my experience with stress and burnout, I also became a health and nutrition coach. I did quite a bit of stuff in stress management. So I ended up getting my certification in stress management. I'm also a Pilates instructor. And, you know, having that understanding of physiology and the physical body, I sort of then wanted to go into the mental health type aspect. And so I did my postgraduate diploma in counselling, and now that's what I do. So I've had this quite a big transformation when it comes to my career. But I also, own Knowing Her Wellness, which pretty much encompasses the counselling and the coaching. And I have also published my own journal, which is called the Stress Less Journal. And that has been a fabulous tool for people to manage their stress and anxiety. And I also have my own podcast, which currently, till the new year, is on a bit of a pause. I've quite a bit of, I guess, rebranding happening with the counselling now and incorporating that into my business. So my podcast is Too Blessed to Be Stressed. And so really the last seasons that I've had have been mainly about sort of health and well-being, how to manage your stress and anxiety, and I guess having those coping tools to manage the things that us women go through.
Absolutely. And everyone that's listening, I hope you picked up a theme that I seem to be chatting with a lot of people within the counseling and coaching space. We are all here. We all have different modalities. We all have different trainings. We all have different specialities. Yet we are talking about and helping the same niche market, the same clients, the same customers. So just because Karolina is a coach and a counselor and has so many amazing certifications doesn't mean that we're competing against each other. We are actually complementary in lots and lots of ways as well. So Karolina, that's an amazing story. And I think the health and the mental health is a very big part of for women, a lot like it's been a big help for men over the last few years of getting men to open up and men to have a really deep look into their mental health. I think it's time now for us women to do the same. And it's not just chatting to your girlfriends. I think it's about time we actually speak up and get the help that we need, because burnout is real. Very similar. We're going to go into a little bit of detail and share a little bit of vulnerability as well. But my story is somewhat similar but different. I had a 20-year corporate career, so corporate finance. I traveled internationally. I was managing teams. At the point of where I burn out, my boys were 6 and 2. So I was managing that. We had started our own business. And I thought, being in the constant alpha masculine state, I didn't know any different. So you just continually say yes. And when you don't have any boundaries, when you are not in any of your feminine energy, when you are in the alpha state, you feel that you have to keep going because you're too far down the track. Like, you cannot see light for day and you burn out. Now, burnout for me was massive identity struggle. I really struggled knowing what it is when I left corporate, because it's all I'd ever known. What do I do? Who am I? Who is Claire? It's taken a lot of a journey over the last 3 years, and I'm really proud to say I'm an identity coach now for women, and I really help women just with some real life experiences, along with certifications and modalities that really break down in a simplified way that doesn't overwhelm women, that there is more. And it's simple changes. You know, you would have heard Karolina say that she's developed her own journal. Lots of women don't even know where to start with journaling. You know, we think we need to sit for hours a day at 5 a.m. to do it. It's not. It's simply 10 minutes in the morning and 10 at night, but really looking at, what are you proud of? What have I achieved? Not so much what have I achieved, what am I proud of today? But on the darkest of days and the hardest of days, when the kids are not listening, everything seems difficult, you are in that do mode. What are you most proud of? And that's where resilience and perseverance comes in. And that's where the little hacks, when you learn along the way, if you invest in coaching, if you listen to podcasts, of how we manage to still have the thought, but we just don't hold on to the emotion attached to the thought. That's the difference between sort of people that have done all the work and the journey and the healing and the chatting versus the people that feel stuck. Would you agree with that, Karolina?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of us women at some stage or another get stuck. It just naturally happens. It's about how you navigate the being stuck and how you navigate out of it. And I think very often we sort of rush to the next thing and we just want to know what's coming next, when really it's about taking a step back and sometimes observing and seeing what's actually happening around you. I don't think we observe and reflect enough. And just you touching there on the journaling side of things, which I know we'll speak about journaling during the episode. But when I created the journal, it was literally popped into my head when I gave myself space. So when I worked in healthcare and I ended up working with a lot of kids oncology, and that was really rewarding, but it was also really tough. And it wasn't till I moved on from that career path that I remember just one day. And I obviously felt like I had made the right decision leaving healthcare. But I was walking one day and I literally had this like pink journal just pop into my head. It was so clear, and like straight away I knew what I was going to put into it, what it was going to look like. And it was because I gave myself space. And I think women need to allow themselves to explore and give themselves that space to see what comes to them while they're in that phase of their life, rather than rushing on to the next thing.
And that's where the difference between masculine and feminine energy comes in. And I do a whole module on this, and I'm very big about this, and it's going to be a massive part of my 2023. Everyone has masculine and feminine energy. We as women have masculine energy, and men have feminine energy. It's just the difference. The feminine energy asks us, very much like Karolina, you just said, the space. We have to learn how to hold faith without having to figure it all out. or understand or control the outcome. We have to sit, and when we say we have downloads and the creatives, and this is the space that we have, exactly like Karolina has, it's in the moments when you're quiet. It's in the moments when you've woken up in the morning, or when you've just struggled, or you just see a color or a sound. A lot of my programs, I write the ideas down in half an hour, because it's that space between, okay, I'm pushing mode. I'm in that heavy masculine energy and I'm not getting the results I want. So I'm going to step back from it and I'm just going to let it be for a bit. And it could be a day, it could be an hour, it could be a week, but then the ideas come. And that's where we really need to look into it and say it's okay to rest. And when we say rest, we are not saying putting your feet up on the couch with Netflix. It's taking a step back and nourishing ourselves. Are we drinking enough water? Have we been outside? Have we had sunlight? Sunlight is phenomenal for our bodies in the right context. Have we written our thoughts out? Are we in our headspace too much? Because if we're out of alignment, you can't use your intuition if your head voice is speaking so loud. And if you've had to learn how to use your intuition, it's very difficult to understand what your voice of intuition sounds like if you're used to your head voice speaking all of the time. So that's awesome. That's so true when we need to hold faith. And as someone who's recently learned how to hold faith and just trust, it's not easy, ladies. It's really difficult. Would you agree? I'm not, and you're not a patient person sometimes. You want it now.
Yeah. And this is why I do what I do, because I've gone through this transformation myself. It has taken me such a long time to be able to get out of my own head. I think naturally as women, we have so many things to juggle. We always have so many thoughts because we're always so busy looking after everyone else around us, that it's really a skill and an art to learn how to slow down and to also shut things in your mind off a little bit when you need to. I mean, obviously, when you're, in full swing and you're doing stuff, of course, your mind is going to be working overtime. But when, you put your head down on the pillow at night, you should be able to quieten your mind just so you get, say, that restful sleep.
Yeah. And it's also about cultivating. That's why it's so intricate in recovering from burnout or overcoming the struggles. It's not just focusing on one area. We're talking about energy. We're talking about inner circles. So and the art of communication, if you can't communicate to those closest to you how you're feeling, where you need help, you are never going to get out of your headspace and you are never going to get out of that doing mode of what's coming up. I remember I used to wake up first thing in the morning and be freaking out about what I had on for the day. The first thing I do is check my calendar of who's put what meeting where. It's that loss of control feeling, and it's the hamster wheel feeling that nothing you've tried it before is ever going to get out. So maybe this is what my life is. That's how my burnout sounded like. It was the notoriety of me going to work, knowing everyone knew who I was, yet I'd come home and I'd be a shell of the person. The masks of anxiety that I wore, I let it all out at home, but I wasn't the nice person at home. I wasn't the pleasant person at home. I wasn't the nourishing wife, the loving mum, because I had nothing left to give. Yet on the other hand, I was craving love. I was craving attention, being seen and heard, but I wasn't giving it to receive because I'd spent all that energy at work giving it to people who really didn't care. That's what burnout is. It's not just a week in bed or a day in bed and a hot coffee with Netflix. It's counseling help with people over a 6 week at least period that are going to help you move through the blocks and the emotions so that you don't feel like you're broken. That's the difficult part.
Absolutely. And my story, I guess, is a little similar, yet a bit different. So when I suffered from burnout, I touched on it just at the start, but I was just finishing my master's and I always have been very, very career driven. And so I think for women that are particularly career driven, burnout is just something that will definitely affect them at one stage or another if they don't learn how to manage it. So I had literally just finished my master's and radiotherapy as a field can be quite competitive. So I was trying to get like the graduate position. And so I was, studying, I was doing a lot of extra stuff to stand out on my resume. And literally, like, I can't even explain it to anyone. I woke up one day and I had all these weird symptoms that I couldn't explain to anyone. So I was severely fatigued. I think at one stage I was literally sleeping about 18 hours. Like, I literally could not get enough sleep if I tried. I had horrific brain fog. I had horrific muscle pains, bone pains. I had gastrointestinal problems, urinary issues. Over a couple of weeks, I think I lost over 10% of my body weight, and I'm not naturally person either. So you could physically see straight away that I wasn't well. And I remember literally going from specialist to specialist because, of course, my science brain was like, there needs to be some sort of explanation of why I'm going through this. I've got something. And literally by the time that I got to the neurologist, which was the last specialist I saw, and he was just wonderful. He said, we see women like you all the time. You're all go-getters. You want to show up 100% in every area of your life. And you one day just wake up and literally like your body shuts down, and it's not something that they can always necessarily diagnose or describe medically. But I guess that was my wake up call to, live life completely differently. And I'm actually really grateful for it now. I mean, at the time it was really, really hard. And I think it took me probably a good year and a half, nearly 2 years to fully recover. And I did so many things. I obviously explored the medical side of stuff. I explored the holistic stuff. So I had spent so much money and energy to get myself back. And I always promised myself that I never wanted that situation ever again. And so that was really the catalyst of my whole career change, of wanting to work for myself so that I could enjoy life and be able to manage my health better. So, yeah, that's pretty much my story. But like you said, it's not, burnout isn't thing that sort of disappears over, a day or a week. You literally sometimes spend over a year getting yourself better and trying to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we get so much better once you've experienced that struggle and that difficulty, that you learn to recognize the triggers. And this is something that I've been saying for a little while is, ladies, you never get over your fears. You get better at recognizing and responding to your triggers. So I've got a fear of inadequacy. I've got a fear of rejection, and they're always going to be there. There's something that's ingrained in me and they'll never go away. But I'm better at responding to the triggers. So that resentment that I feel when I feel like I'm losing that belief, or when I feel like I'm in that heightened anxiety of there's too much going on, I'm so overwhelmed, I tend to go into my shell and think it's all my responsibility to fix. But then I feel really resentful that no one's asked me for help. No one sees what I'm doing. Why is everyone living a fun, fabulous life and I'm struggling? And that's when I notice I'm verging not back into burnout, but I'm on the edge of, oh, I don't like this feeling because this feeling reminds me from 3 years ago. And that's when I'm like, all right, you need to start drinking your water, start eating a bit better, start changing something up, because whatever you're doing, girl, it's not working. And that's the trigger. When we say that we are triggered, it's not a word that you throw away. It's a physical reaction in your body. It's when your body gets hunched over and you protect all of your chakras, or when your shoulders are all back. Notice to how your energy feels, what your gut says. What is your body saying? Because they're the signs that that's not right for you. That's not working. And that's really important. Very similar to you, brain fog. I was presenting as Claire. I looked like me. I couldn't hold a conversation. I couldn't look people in the eye. It was just so focused on what's ahead, in fear of missing something because someone would be disappointed in me, that I couldn't hold that conversation. And when I left that, I thought, I'm going to have to learn how to talk to people. Yeah, it's that, okay, when I left that world, I'm going to have to learn how to be a full-time mum. I've never been that. Like you, I was career driven. My boys were at daycare and I went back to work. So I have to learn how to talk to people. I'm going to have to learn how to be a mum. What if I get bored? And then your mind starts going. So, like you said before, we need to learn how to quieten our mind into a space that is productive and efficient, but still holds that space as well.
Yeah, and I think you touched on overwhelm there, and I'm very big on dealing with obviously stress and anxiety. That makes up a massive chunk of work that I do. And usually it's those women that suffer from chronic stress and really bad overwhelm. They are the ones that end up burning because they literally don't know how to manage their stress. And obviously, a little bit of stress is actually good for us. It's when that stress becomes chronic that us women tend to slowly go into that burnout state if we don't get to it early enough.
And it also depends on how we were brought up too. If our previous generations were high functioning, stressful people or go getters, then we don't know any different either. So we need to be a bit kind on ourselves. That my grandmother, my mum were workers right from the start. So that's all I thought I knew. I'm the only first one to start our own business and just work for ourselves. And it's okay to be a bit different, but it's really difficult if you're that change maker, if you're that legacy breaker, you feel the weight of that expectation. And sometimes that overwhelm as well, on top of everything else you're feeling, can be all too much. And it's always the smallest thing that are going to trick you over the edge. The big stuff won't trick you up. It'll be the little thing that's sitting in traffic, that meeting that's running late. It's that, what are people going to think of me? It's those little tricks that are going to tip you over the edge that in the long run don't actually mean anything, because the bigger story and the bigger healing hasn't happened to lead up to that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I guess I've come from a background where everyone always works really hard, and that's probably where I guess my burnout came from. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hard getting a really good education, and obviously I'm all for getting a great education. I mean, I couldn't do what I'm doing now without being educated, but I guess because I've steered off from what's considered normal and you know finishing a degree and then going and doing what you are qualified to do. And I've sort of had this whole change. I've probably been that generational change that has come into our family. And yeah, there is obviously a lot of pressure to succeed and do well. But I think we also need to recognize that those things also take time. It's not something that happens overnight. I've been working on the business since 2018. It just takes time.
Yep.
It takes time to get clients. It takes time for people to trust you and know what you're actually doing as a part of your business. So I think it's really important to give yourself that time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to be in the space where there are lots of other people. If you look at the coaching space and the wellness space that both Carolina and I are in, there are thousands and millions of people. We are just brave enough to share our vulnerabilities on a platform without fearing the judgment that's coming. We're okay to show up. On a lot of my videos, I don't have makeup on. A lot of my stuff, I'm not staged. The reels that I do are just whatever comes into my head, at that moment. And that's okay to do. It doesn't have to be staged. It doesn't have to have beautiful lighting in a beautiful location with beautiful fonts and graphics. It can just, the realer that you are, the more relatable you have. And that's
Yes.
why those listening will know that the women that I have on this podcast are normal people doing extraordinary things. The difference with us and perhaps people listening is that we've been brave enough to step away from something that wasn't right for us, but to stand on our own, as well as nobody else believing in us that this is what we wanted to do. That contributes to burnout and stress and overwhelm. But the reward that we're now reaping, like Carolina said, 3 years in the making, 4 years in the making, is phenomenal. We understand it's the long game.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. And I mean, I was lucky. I had really good support around me. Like my mum was quite supportive. Husband was really, really supportive. But I'm sure that there were lots of people out there when I told them that I had done, a master's degree in radiotherapy and I, got a permission to go up to a grade 2 when I was sort of filling in as a grade 3 as well. I'm sure some people were like, there's really limited jobs and you're sort of walking away from that. Like you've got
Mm.
a job. So I'm sure some people looked at me going, I can't believe she's doing that. But I have been so happy ever since. And I'm not saying that I wasn't unhappy in radiotherapy. I just like I had this inkling to do something else. And I had this inkling of how I wanted my life to look like. And I think oncology in particular, where you're dealing with people that, you know, some get better, but some don't. And you see that sort of death life transition happen, it really makes you question your life and what you want your life to look like. And you know, it also makes you think about what regrets you don't want to have when you sort of get to your last day, which I know sounds a little bit morbid at times, but you know, it really gives you great awareness of where you want to be and what you want to achieve before that day comes.
And those two questions that you mentioned are two of the foundational questions I ask all of my clients, nearly in any of my masterclasses, my programs. What is it that you want to feel? What is it that you don't want to feel? And where don't you want to be? Take the how, take the why. When women say, I'm doing this, this is my why, it's surface level, go deeper. What is it that you don't want to feel anymore? Is it that stress? Is that overwhelm? Is that stuck feeling that you're not free? You're not free to be who you are because you're worried what people will think. You know, I walked away from an incredibly paying corporate career into unemployment for a little while and in our signage business, and people thought I was bananas. I'm a mum. What are you going to do? You have to provide for your family. There are other ways to make money, but no one saw how miserable I was. And it's taken people a really long time to see how I'm genuinely happy doing what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
money is not everything. Time
No.
freedom for me is the gold medal, because time freedom allows me to give back. It allows me to be interactive and present with my kids and my family, because I know I didn't get that, or I didn't have that opportunity while I was in my corporate career. So that's what I want to have. What I don't want is to feel like I'm not present in those moments anymore. You know, my boys are nearly 7 and 11. So I'm verging on the last little bit before they get into those teenage years. But, you know, it's that presence, it's that passion, it's that intimacy that you get one real crack at to build a foundation on. And I didn't get that in my corporate career because I was so focused on everybody else. So they're really great points.
Yeah, and I think I had that battle for a while before I left radiotherapy. I was sort of like, oh, I want to do this, but I'm too scared. I have such a secure job. And it was this back and forth that eventually got a bit exhausting. I was like, okay, well, I just need to make a decision and stick with it. And also, I knew that at some stage, my hubby and I wanted to have kids. And so I had to think about the qualities that I wanted to show as a parent and how I wanted to show up for our child or children, however many we decided to have. At the moment, we've just got one. And so that really made my decision just that little bit easier, because I just realized that I wanted to be a present parent. I wanted to make an income, still be really successful in what I do, but on my own terms and do it around my child or children, because I think what is the point of having children if you don't give them the time? So, you know, that sort of made my decision towards the end a little bit easier.
And that's such a good point. And when we talk about being successful, it's not the monetary value as well. We need to start measuring success on quality.
Mm,
Okay, quality of the life, quality of the presence, quality of your time, who you have in your life. You know, who do you know who you don't want to spend your time with? Do you know who you want to spend your time with? If you're spending your time with people that don't set you on fire, that don't bring out your qualities, you're spending your time with the wrong people. And that is something we can't ever get back, is the one thing in time. And knowing the bravery of being able to stand up and say, no, this is not what I want to do. I don't know how, but I just feel like something inside me needs this, is so, so relevant to a lot of women, because I feel like we're never taught to believe in ourselves past the age of 5. You
Yes.
know, we're not taught, we're sort of, and I spoke about this in a podcast coming up, I've recorded yesterday in a couple of weeks. And we seem to go through so, and that's why we struggle with identity because we're so used to being something that's, or someone's, other people want us to be. We don't know who we want to be because we feel like we have to be mothers and wives and workers and do tick all these good girl boxes. But what if that doesn't set your soul on fire? What if you're actually not happy? You know, ticking all those boxes on paper looks successful, but there's no point in having success if you're miserable. You know, if you're not doing anything with that success and that time, which is really important. Carolina, what are some strategies you use for when you feel yourself falling back into that resentment mode? Because we do. We
Yes.
always fall back into that resentment mode, and we are 25 days out from Christmas and we're about to head into that danger zone right now. So, what are some simple strategies you use every day that women listening can adopt that's probably not going to cost them a cent?
I love that. I have so many, but my big ones. I mean, I feel like I just use different ones at whatever time I need them. But I think one of the biggest things that women need to understand is what they can actually handle physically, mentally, energetically, because it's when we have no understanding of those things that we actually burn out. So, looking at your week ahead and seeing what you have on, and if you feel like it just feels a little bit overwhelming, you have too much, what's less urgent on the list and maybe reschedule that for the following week. I know at the start of this week, I sort of looked at my calendar and I thought, whoa, like I am, trying to do this and this and this. What's actually not urgent? And there were two things that I could actually get off my calendar and reschedule them week, and it's going to flow so much more better. So I think having that understanding what capacity you have in your every day-to-day living is really, really important. Exercise, I mean, I think we can spend lots of money on exercise, but just going for a walk and just mentally trying to get out of your head a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything strenuous, but just having a break away from home, getting some fresh air, like you said, getting some vitamin D is so important. Journaling, I think journaling is just amazing. And again, I've got my own journal, but you don't need a fancy journal to do journaling. So, really just spending 5 to 10 minutes each day, whenever. And when you're feeling really, really full in your brain, just literally doing like a brain dump to paper. It doesn't have to make sense, but just writing what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, why you think you're feeling a certain way. Because I think reflection is really important. And so by journaling, we can actually reflect, get a really clear picture of actually what's going on for us and what we need to change. And then diet is the next thing. I think us as women, because we are juggling so many things, we go through periods of just eating on the run, not absorbing our food very well. And I did my health and nutrition coaching for this reason, because I think diet is so important for women. And we just eat whatever, we're not even mindful when we're eating it. So, really slowing down, digesting your food properly, and also eating fresh food. I think now, like compared to my mum's generation, my grandparents' generation, the food is so processed. So trying to eat organic where you can, and just eating fresh food and not things out of a box. Because I think sometimes we sort of look at the day we've had and we sort of reflect back on what we've eaten, and that has been packaged food. So I think diet is really important. And then the last thing is just care. Now, self care looks so different to everyone, but it's whatever sort of fills your cup, whether it's, taking a bath, whether it's just having some peace and quiet away from the kids, like
Mm-hmm.
absolutely anything. So just working out what it is that fills your cup up and what works for you.
Yeah, and that's the best thing is that whatever Carolina will suggest and what I'm about to suggest may be totally different, and that's okay, and it may not resonate, but it's something that you need to. It's an experiment. Life is an experiment. Find what works for you. Now, for me, when I experience burnout, I need to grab my water and I need to go outside and walk. I need that pattern interruption to stop me from looking at a screen, waiting for these answers to come out in front of me or the problems to solve themselves. So that's something that's big for me. I do Pilates every day, but that is something that is just for me. I get up early and I go to the gym and I come home and the kids are still sleeping. They wouldn't even know that I'm gone. And it just means that efficiency is something that is big for me, productivity and efficiency. And I use my time when I'm the most energetic. So I don't schedule, I'm no good really after sort of 3 o'clock. That's when my energy seems to wane down and I start to go into mum mode. I'm not going to use my high energy or my big brain thinking at 3 p.m. knowing I don't have the capacity to deal with it. I make sure all of my stuff is done in the morning. And I also structure my weeks in a way that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are heavy work weeks, heavy work days for me, so that Thursday, Friday gives me that space, to be mum, to be at school, to be present, to have that time for me. Yes, I'm very fortunate I work for myself, but I used to structure it that way in corporate too, because something always happened at 12 o'clock on a Friday and I made sure I left that time, or my team needed me, or it was always something. So they're really big habits. Journaling is one for me. If you're in business for yourself and you get a payment in that surprised you, when a client comes through and says, I want to book for you, and that they're brand new, cold market, write it down and be thankful for that, because it's those little moments where you're appreciative of the money coming in if you're in business for yourself that helps you stay on the path and hold faith that what you're speaking about is worth it. And it's also one for me is getting around people that are going to nurture you. Don't keep hanging out with people that are bitching about life. They are not going to get you out of the hole. They're not understanding you. They're not even listening to you because they're too busy mentioning and venting their own life. Get around people and cultivate an inner circle. And like I said this before, you're probably going to have to pay money because you're going to have to invest in people that are going to have the techniques to help you get out of your head. Yeah, get out of your head. Get the people around you that make you feel good and will come back to you and essentially tell you you're not broken. It's just difficult at the moment. You're not broken in any way, shape or form. It's just that you've been digressed off the path a bit and we need to get you back on. So that's what burnout is. And there's some strategies that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, but are going to nourish you. Drinking water instead of 5 coffees. Swap one for a hot water. It's amazing what you can do. Swap your coffee for water and start looking after yourself, because you're expecting yourself to be an athlete, yet you're fueling your body with rubbish and then wondering why you're not performing at your absolute best. Yeah, that's what the difference is. The difference is of those that are out of their heads, probably like Carolina and myself. We know the little tricks, and we know the tricks that the body and our mind will play on us too. The days where you feel a little bit, oh, my back's a bit sore today, maybe I won't go to the gym. Go to the gym and do that class. You'll feel better for it.
Yeah. And I'm obviously also a Pilates instructor, and I'm always like, I literally talk to myself like I would talk to my clients. And it's very easy for your mind to trick you and talk you into not going the other way around. So it's really just, I guess, focusing on mindset. I think that's really, really important, because I think often we just don't give ourselves the time to work on our mindset. And once we change our mindset, it changes our life dramatically, because it's very easy to complain about stuff. I'm sure we all have stuff to complain about, but when you actually take a step back and think of what your life is like, there's also a million things to be grateful and thankful for.
Yeah, and it's the little things that'll provide the most joy. Perhaps your kids were more behaved today. Were you thankful for that? Maybe you didn't yell so much this morning. You only nagged twice to empty the dishwasher, not 15 times. You didn't nag them and push them in the shower. They magically got in the shower themselves. But it's all those little things that you really need to be grateful for. Because like Carolina just said, your mind will tell you all of the things that are not working, that seem really hard, that are just too difficult for you. And then those stories multiply down a rabbit hole that You don't even know how you got there at the end anyway. So this is really important messaging. And Karolina, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. I'm so excited and grateful for you. I'm going to drop Karolina Knowing Her Wellness, all her details here in the podcast link. So please go over, show some love, and check out the journal that she has, because it is a resource that is done for you. You just got to fill in the blanks, and that is what we do. And that is the first step to really getting out of your own head. So thank you so much, lovely, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Claire. It was just a pleasure, and I love podcast interviews because I do feel like people get so much from them. And I guess with us, this was really a conversation as opposed to an interview. So
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. That is the best bit about this job. It's just chatting with friends and helping other women along the way. So ladies, please make sure you head over, check out Karolina, and make sure that you show some love, and make sure that you are not using burnout as an excuse. Make sure you get stuck into the real feelings of what it is you actually want and what you don't want. It's going to save you so much time and energy going forward. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Karolina, and I look forward to hearing from you really soon.
Take care. Bye.